All right, everybody, welcome to Technology Transformation Webinar Series. This is Alan Watkins. I'm the president of TTM, and we're here to serve. We help companies evaluate the technologies in the market, whether you like to buy from Gartner or other ranked technologies, and evaluate not only how does it fit your environment, your staff, your team, your organizations, and your outcomes, but how do you procure it? We have over 350 vendor partners, and we help clients make sense of what they're doing, build ROIs around what they're trying to do, and then bring in the right resources and execution partners to make it happen. That's the most important, is we make things happen in technology. So today we are covering something that I have not covered in a webinar before, but is absolutely fantastically important to organizations, especially with the work at home, and a lot of legislation coming. So I'm pleased to welcome Kristen Wilson with RedSky. Hey, Kristen.
Good morning, Alan. Thank you so much. This is Kristen with RedSky Technologies. We are an E911 solution provider. And Alan asked me here today to talk to you about E911. There is legislation surrounding it, also a lot of confusion about what E911 means. So I'm going to jump right in. A little bit about RedSky Technologies. We've been in business for over 20 years. We were the first company to create an E911 solution and distribute it to enterprises. We are also the only company still that is individually owned and operated and only sells E911. So you'll learn a lot about E911 today, and you will eventually find out that there are other ways of purchasing this from different companies. And just so you know, RedSky is family owned and operated, and this is all we sell, it's all we develop. I sit in the same floor with the developers and the engineers, and I always have access to all of their expertise, and all of the implementations get done in-house. We only provide service to the US and Canada, and that is because we are the only two companies who have the same infrastructure that dial 911 as their emergency number. So you might know that in the UK they dial 999, but it's not that we couldn't program our software to respond to 999, it's that their infrastructure is different. But it is on our roadmap to someday be global, since so many companies are global these days. So I want to talk to you today about legislation first. So first, let me tell you that E911 stands for Enhanced 911, not emergency. So that E, that enhancement, is how we deal with the way VoIP breaks 911. So when phones stopped making calls over copper wire and suddenly went over the internet, now you have no idea where that call is coming from, because that internet isn't always giving you the physical address where the caller is. So that's the history of the E. At today, there are 23 states that have their own state legislation surrounding E911. And the Vice President of Public Safety at my company has been on the board of the National Emergency Numbers Association. He has also been instrumental in building the United States 911 infrastructure. And he has helped this federal legislation actually become law, because all these 23 different states that had laws at the time every one of them was completely different. And there was no uniformity. And a company that had an office in New York and an office in Nevada had different laws that they had to follow, but also they had to protect the same employees and be in line with OSHA requirements. So having a federal law was the simplest thing, and it took dozens of years to get this in place. So in August 2018, the president signed HR 1625, which is a 129-page law, and Section 506 of this law is called the Baum Act. And you don't need to memorize that or know it or anything, but a year later, in August of 2019, the FCC adopted this into a report and order, and then the FCC created timelines for compliance and made it so that we all know how this is going to roll out. So the first part of HR 1625, Section 506, is Kari's law. There are two parts to Kari's law: direct dialing. being able to pick up a phone anywhere and dial 911 from it without having to find a way to get an outside line. So, you know, in hotels or in some businesses, you have to dial 9 or 8 to get an outside line. So because a lot of us in the corporate world have been programmed to do this, we automatically pick up a phone and dial our dial out number, so 9. So you have to be able to dial 9911 or 911 from any phone anywhere at any time. That's now the law. This isn't anything RedSky gets involved in. This is a call server type of issue. So it gets programmed in the call servers. Most call servers today already have it. So it's the next thing about this law, though, the thing that RedSky can help you with is emergency notifications. So Kari's law is one of the laws that has been in place in a lot of these 23 different states. And of the 23 states that have legislation, sometimes it would only be Kari's law for direct dial, and sometimes it would be Kari's law and then other information about 911 calls. Kari's law has never required notifications. So if I work in a big company and we are, like, I'm stationed in, I'm based in Chicago, and I work in a 30-story building, and my company has there. So if I dialed 911 from the 4th floor, then the office manager who sits on the 16th floor wouldn't actually know that I had dialed 911. So notifications are important for a lot of different reasons. The company needs to know that one of their employees has dialed 911, and it's great for reporting, and it's great for human resources and OSHA safety regulations. So there are call servers that are in use today that actually are already programmed to provide a text and an email notification if the 911 dial pattern is dialed. That's perfect. RedSky also provides text and email, but what we also have is an enhanced screen pop desktop notification, which is great for security offices in hospitals and hotels and schools. These are some of the few companies that, or verticals that purchase our screen pop desktop notification. It is a one-to-one. It has to sit on a device. It has a username and a password that someone has to log into. So if a 911 emergency happens from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. and Joe was logged in to the security console in the security desk at that time, the screen pop's going to pop up and it's going to have an audible alarm, and Joe's going to have to acknowledge that alarm. And then when reports are run, the reports will show who was logged in to the console, how long it took them to respond to the emergency. And this is kind of information that companies want to know. At the same time, whether it's the call server or RedSky, text and emails are also going out to user groups that a 911 call is in progress. And it's great to have several people know at once. So the security team, the receptionist, the office manager, the IT help desk for that particular company. And the reason is because someone can go to the front door and meet emergency services. Calls can be made. Someone can react first before emergency services get there. The screen pop has all the same information that the 911 operator gets. The texts and emails, it's a little bit more abbreviated, but you'll know the general location of the call and what department called. And I'll explain that all later. So Kari's law went into effect in February, so we're already in the timeline for this. There is some grandfathering in to be done until February of 2016. Until February 2021. Believe it or not, the FCC has not pushed back any of these compliance timelines, even though we are in the middle of a global pandemic. So Kari's law went into effect right before we went into stay-at-home orders. And the grandfathering is if your call server has not been updated prior to February 16th, then you're going to be given a year until February 2021 to get into compliance. But after that, everyone has to be in compliance. Right now, the only people who had to get in compliance were people who were building, companies that were building new call servers or upgrading their call servers at the time. And if anyone does it between February 2020 and February 2021, they automatically have to upgrade their E911 enhancements. So that's Kari's law, direct dialing and notifications. Part 2 of the HR 1625, Section 506 Baum's Act is Baum's Act itself, and that is dispatchable locations. A dispatchable location is what you're seeing on my screen right now. 333 North Michigan Avenue, 16th floor, room 1612, or northeast corner. What this information is it's granular, and this is what the FCC is looking for. When a 911 call is made from a 30-story building in the middle of Chicago, and if the fire trucks were just to arrive at 333 North Michigan Avenue, there are hundreds of tenants in those 30 floors. And when they walked in the door, the security team, at the front desk where I scan my badge every morning would say, I have no idea who dialed 911. I don't know where they are. And then nothing would be able to happen. No one would be able to find me. And that's how VoIP broke 911. Because they only get the street address where the phone is registered. So we have a portal that we build for you, and we create the granularity that is required. So granularity is great, 16th floor. Okay, they get up to the 16th floor. The 16th floor is 100,000 square feet. Okay, now where is that person? So we need even more granularity. We need the room, the office number that they're in, or at the very least, northwest quadrant. Or northeast quadrant, as this says. And how do they know where the northeast quadrant is? We have maps posted at the elevator and the stairwell banks. So this is the kind of level of granularity that the FCC is looking for. So Baum's Act is going to be rolled out slowly. The first compliance timeline is January 6, 2021. So we're right around the 6-month mark until this is going to become necessary. But that's only for hard phones that sit on desks and don't move. They have to be static. A lot of hard phones do move from location to location, floor to floor across the country. So, the manual update of that information has to be put in for Baum's Act. Starting in January 2022, that's when soft phones and hard phones that move have to be covered. In addition to off-premise phones that for remote workers like we are all today. I'm talking to you from my dining room in a suburb right outside of Chicago. And this might become the norm for more and more people than ever before, but there have always been remote workers and there have always been nomadic workers. I actually don't normally work remote. I work in my office on Michigan Avenue, but I travel extensively and I'm always in convention centers and hotels. And I do use a soft phone client on my laptop, but I also can log into my soft phone client from my smartphone. So we'll talk about all of that now because I'm almost finished talking about legislation. A lot of questions we get, does this include soft phones? Yes, obviously, I just talked about that. My company gave me a sticker that says don't dial 911 from this device. This is no longer allowable. This used to be the norm with a lot of companies. They would distribute devices like laptops and smartphones and say, hey, by the way, don't dial 911 from this. You won't be found. That's not legal anymore. We are a small business. Are we exempt? No. If you have a VoIP system, an MTLS, multi-line telephone system, you have to have an E911 solution. So you could have 5 employees. If you buy a VoIP system for these 5 employees, then you have to have an E911 solution. What if I make an upgrade after February 16th? So that's what I was talking about, the Kari law grandfather clause. Anytime starting now that you're hearing this, if one of your customers is doing an upgrade, they have to be in compliance with the law. If they hadn't upgraded prior to February 16th, then they're grandfathered for the year. And what the FCC is doing is saying, we know everyone's going to have to make changes for Baum's Act come January 6, 2021. So we'll let them get into compliance with Kari's law at that time if they don't make any changes before then. So we talked about compliance for Kari's law, which is in effect now, compliance with the Baum's Act, which is coming up in 6 months, and then 1.5 years for the soft phones. So I want to talk to you now about E911 in general. So RedSky has 3 things that we focus on for an E911 solution. Finding the caller. Where is this caller coming from? Where is the device that they are calling located? Routing the call to the correct PSAP. Routing is very important. I could be in my company's corporate offices in Arizona, and if I dialed 911 from there and we didn't have an E911 solution, it would look like I was calling from Chicago. That's a problem. And then notifications. We talked about notifications. It's very important that internal personnel knows that someone in the company dialed 911. It's important for a number of reasons. So I'm going to start showing you what this looks like with a few visuals. Finding the caller in the location that they are. So we have Joe Smith right here. He's in at this location on the 10th floor. So say Joe moves, he's gotten a promotion and he's being asked to move to a different department, and that department could be on the 8th floor, or that department could be across the city in a different office building, or it could be across the country. So Joe packs up his office and he puts everything in a box and moves it, and including that on his desk is his hard phone. He unplugs it and he moves it to the other location and he plugs it in. That's considered a registration event. So RedSky's E911 Manager, it's our flagship product. It's the finding feature that we have. E911 Manager in a corporate environment, unplugging and plugging in the phone is considered a registration event. Joe could plug in his phone at his new location, pick up the phone, dial 911, and they would have his new location information. It's dynamic. It happens within seconds. Joe would be found. In another situation, without an E911 solution, Joe would have to call the telecom manager or the IT manager and say, hey, by the way, I moved. And then the IT manager would have to go into the call server and update that location for that 10-digit phone number that is associated with Joe Smith. This could take days. It could be wrong. It could have, Joe could, the telecom manager could fat finger the data, and the information would be incorrect. So the nice thing about E911 Manager is when we build the portal for you, every single number is tested by a test call to 911 to make sure that the call goes through, the information is correct. And then because it's dynamic, we know all the locations associated in the E911 Manager are correctly provisioned, and so there will be no clerical errors when people move. This is just a cross-section of a building. I'm letting you know that we can go directly to a desk. So with E911 Manager, you can go right down to this desktop. Also, because this is a cubicle farm, you could actually just group all of these phones by subnet in the call server panel and make all of these calls one location. Because it's in an open floor plan, it wouldn't be difficult to find somebody within these 8 or 10 desks. In a situation like this, where it's an office with a closed door or like a conference room, you want to make that its own location. So even though this might be a cubicle farm, you wouldn't want to include this conference room in with this grouping. We want to be able, the firefighters and the police, to know where to go exactly without them having to open doors and peer in. It just, every 10 seconds lost or every 10 seconds saved saves a life, is what 911 has told us. So we want to save seconds here. So that was the finding feature. And you can use that alone. So the way a call is routed, we can route via SIP trunk, PSTN trunk, PRI. If you know what those mean, that's great. If you don't need to know what that means. I don't either. I know that that's how the phone call, when I pick up a phone, it gets trunked out of my phone to a location that I am calling, whether it's 911 or another business. And routing can be done by your local exchange carrier, your phone service, whoever you use to get a dial tone. The reason that RedSky has a routing solution is because of the way, like I was talking before about manual updates. So if you're having your dial tone provider do your routing, when changes are made, you have to call that dial tone provider and tell them that a change has been made and they have to update their system. With E911 Anywhere, we don't replace your dial tone, but we replace the data records that your phone company uses. And we build the portal for you, and when something changes in that environment, you can log into that and change it yourself, and then test it, and then you can be assured that it's done correctly. And when I say you, I know that you are selling this to customers, but RedSky is there for both of you. Once a customer becomes a RedSky customer, they have 24/7, 365 help desk. If you are their representative, if you are selling this to RedSky, for RedSky to your customers, then you can have access to us as well on behalf of your customer. You would be linked as a contact in their account. So anytime that an engineer or a sales rep or even financial for updating billing information, you would have access to our support desk, which is 24/7, 365. So this routing I was talking before about, RedSky has offices around the country. but all of them are based, all of the phones in all of our offices are based off of the call server that sits on Michigan Avenue with me. So if someone from Arizona dialed 911, it would look like they were calling from Chicago. So our product E911 Anywhere is a cloud-based solution only, and we route the call to the cloud. The cloud is queried based on the number that made that call. Will know the location, because when we built the portal, that number that made every number is associated with a location with the necessary granularity to fill the FCC requirements. E911 Anywhere also works with a product called My E911. So I'm calling you today from a laptop in my home because we're still on stay home orders. So I have my soft phone client on my laptop. When I booted up my soft phone client, the My E911 client pops up and says, "Hey, Kristen, where are you?" And now that I'm home and I've been home for a while, it doesn't ask me anymore because it knows where I am. It recognizes my IP address. When I go back to the office, the same thing. It recognizes that IP address. When I do get to start traveling again, and say I go to Las Vegas and I'm at the MGM Grand, my E911 is going to pop up and say, "Hey, this is where I think you are. Can you confirm it?" And this is going to be what the pop-up looks like. And I can go in and say, "Yep, that's exactly where I am." Or I can go in and say, it might recognize the location as MGM Grand. I picked a place that I don't know the actual address of, but 1234 Main Street, or the Strip. And I can say, "Yes, but I'm in room 1610, or I'm in the grand ballroom on the lower level." So I can update that information. And then when I moved from the ballroom up to my room, my E911 would pop up again and say, "We've noticed the IP address has changed. We know you're still in the same address, but it's a different access point. So would you like to update your information?" I can override this, and I can also ignore it. And what you can tell your customers is they have to provide it, but they can't force their employees to use it. And they are still in compliance as long as they provide the information. As long as they provide the solution, they are good. They can't force employees to use it, though. And the final part about an E911 solution is notifications, and I've talked about this a lot today. And this is an example of a user group, this red part here. So say this is accounting, and down here is marketing. Well, the accounting manager would want to know when any one of his or her employees dialed 911. So would the security team. But the marketing manager doesn't need to know if someone in accounting dialed 911. So we create user groups of people who would be responsible for knowing when a 911 call was made from a zone. So this is considered a zone. And there are lots of different ways that zones can be configured, and that is something that works with our engineering and our sales department. When you contact RedSky and say you have a customer that is interested in a solution, we work with you and your customer on a solution design. And solution designs are based on a lot of different factors. No two sales are alike. We only have a few products that we sell, and they do the same things for everybody, but there are different ways of configuring them. And the nice thing about RedSky only being in the E911 business is that's all we're trying to sell you, and this is all we have time for. So we want you to let us be the subject matter experts. We will give you as much information as you need to bring to your customers, but at the time when it comes to involve us, we're here to support you, and all billing goes through you, all contracts go through you. We don't talk about price with the end user, and we let you be the liaison between RedSky and the customer. We talked earlier about the screen pop desktop notification. This usually doesn't go to, like, the accounting manager wouldn't have something like this, but the security team, the IT help desk, maybe a receptionist would have a screen pop. They can log in to their screen pop desktop notification from a tablet, a smartphone, or the PC or a laptop. So even though it's a one per device, they can log in and have a username. So especially universities have security teams that are only using tablets, and they don't have one tablet for every security team. They might have 20 tablets, and as security comes on and off of their shifts, they log in and out of these tablets. So you would have a username and a password that would maybe be general, so that only a few people can use it, so you would know, and then you would know who was on staff at that time, at that day, for reporting purposes, when you would see who acknowledged the alert. Right now, and until further notice, RedSky is running a program called the Remote Worker Program. It's a 60-day complimentary program for our My E911 and E911 Anywhere package, so that you can cover your remote workers. This is a great way for the sales team to start talking to their end users. If you still have employees who are at home, if we're expecting another lockdown order maybe to come in the fall, if there's going to be a second wave, and even if people have started returning to the office, but you think that they might be remote again, our 60-day program is a really great way to get an idea of how this works. At this time, there are no activation fees, and a RedSky activation fee is a minimum of $2,500. So right off the bat, you're saving $2,500. Then at the end of 60 days, if the customer doesn't want to keep using it, they don't have to, and it just gets canceled. If they want to keep using it, they just have to pay the bill, and they'll effectively be getting 14 months for the price of 12 and no activation fee. And we can get this up and running in as little as 48 hours. What we would need to do is, if you start making phone calls and your customers are like, yeah, sure, I'll try that, we'll have a quick call with them and you. We'll discuss solution design. We need to know like quantity and the soft phone type, and we fill out a quote and an SOW. That the SOW has to be signed, and the quote is just for them to approve that in 60 days, if you decide to keep this, we will send you an invoice and you have to pay it. And if they, we'll contact them at day 57 and say, are you interested in keeping this, or are we going to cancel the order in 3 days? And we wouldn't contact them, we would contact you, and you would let us know. So that is the end of my presentation. If you are interested in working with RedSky, you contact me. Well, let's see, Alan, you want to jump in? Because
feel free to reach out to our team, and we will get everything going with Kristen. Get you demos if you want to take advantage of the free program. Absolutely recommend it. Laws are laws, but liabilities are also pretty significant. So, protecting your organization, from liabilities and taking care of your employees is critical. So, Big RedSky's been here doing a great job in this segment. If you don't have something today, let's get a dialogue going. Stay ahead of the requirements, but also, protect your organization from litigation and protect your employees. That's my thoughts on it.
And I will jump in and say, a lot of people ask us about fines and about the FCC and how they are, how this happens. What the FCC is looking for is civil lawsuits. So the FCC is not walking around seeing if you're in compliance. What they're looking for are lawsuits from families of victims or victims themselves, or any, and then so then it's going to kind of be a double whammy, and it could even be a triple whammy if you have a state legislation. These state legislations are not going away. So state legislations are still on the books. Then there's the federal legislation, and then there are civil lawsuits. So it's best to be in compliance to avoid the potential of fines and fees and lawsuits.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure, it was my pleasure. If please have your team contact me when the customers are ready for some demos and information.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.